to order. This is the Jenks City Council. This is a special meeting, Thursday, October 29th, 2020. It is 7:00 p.m. Let's call roll, please.
Dyke?
Here.
Bojek?
Here.
England?
Here.
Murray?
Here.
Isbell?
Here.
Fox? Here. Mayor Lee?
Here. Thanks for being here, everyone. Do we have any citizens' comments tonight on any item that's not on the agenda?
We do not.
There are no citizens. Oh, I guess they could have written it. I apologize.
All right. City managers report. What do you have for us, Mr. Shrout?
Mayor and all members of council, next week's regularly scheduled meeting is canceled due to the presidential election. The meeting has been rescheduled for the following Tuesday, November 10th at our regularly scheduled time, 6 p.m. Based on our current schedule, we do not anticipate we will have the November 17th City Council meeting. Regarding council meetings, the Oklahoma State Legislature's emergency bill that allowed for open meetings to be held remotely will expire on November 15th. In order to extend the ability to hold open meetings remotely beyond November 15th, a special session of the Oklahoma Legislature would need to be called by the governor or 2/3 of the members of each chamber. I do not anticipate a special session will be called to extend the remote meetings provision, and staff is working on finding a way for our public meetings to be held in person safely. Because of the size of the dais in our council chambers, we think it might be best to hold council meetings in the community room or the Hive in order to provide for adequate social distancing for council members, staff, and the public. We will keep you updated as we work through the options. Regarding the mask requirement, it continues to be a hot topic of debate. Mayor Bynum held a press conference on Tuesday in which he continued to encourage communities that surround Tulsa to implement mask mandates similar to what they have. Mayor Lee has indicated he would like an item on the November 10th agenda to discuss and take possible action on a mask requirement in Jenks. We will work to have local hospital leaders at the November 10th meeting to talk about the impact COVID is having on their operations and answer any questions council may have. Regarding the low water dam, yesterday the city of Tulsa indicated they will have an item on their city council agenda sometime before December 31st, 2020 to extend their low water dam funding deadline from December 31st, 2020 to December 31st, 2022. The city of Jenks ballot language did not provide a deadline, so to speak, of December 2020, so much as an option to use the funds identified for the low water dam for other projects after December 2020 if a deal with Tulsa is not reached. We will plan to continue to reserve funds identified for the low water dam construction until at least December 2022 or whatever Tulsa's extension may be, meaning we really, it's not necessary for us to take action such as it is necessary for Tulsa to take action regarding their ballot language. And I'll go ahead and send out the ballot language from 2016 to everyone tomorrow, and then also the list of projects and the funding identified for those projects. Regarding capital projects, Robert Carr is working to update the capital projects list that was put together last year. This document will be updated on a yearly basis. We'll email it out in November and plan to continue discussing the list as part of the budget approval process in the spring. I know there's some pretty big potholes on South Elm right now that haven't been able to be addressed. We're aware of those. We posted on social media to let the public know that we're aware of it. And hopefully our public works crews can get out there tomorrow and fill some of those in. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Yes, Don.
I have a question. With the low water dam, have we heard anything else about outside funding for that portion we have to have set aside for maintenance yet?
Well, the city of Tulsa and the city of Jenks have been in communication with the Creek Nation over the last 5 years about them providing some sort of funding for the maintenance endowment. And they have not indicated that I guess they have not made anything official. From time to time, they've indicated that they are, I mean, they're all for the low water dam, but they haven't really committed to
Offered up the
providing
funds.
funding. And so, for instance, the build grant that was applied for by INCOG, and, you know, we wrote a letter, I mean, it was basically for Jenks and Tulsa. And, you know, we had a letter of support, Tulsa had a letter of support, the Creek Nation had a letter of support. And in our letter, it was kind of a form letter from INCOG. It stated that, you know, those funds would be used to build the pedestrian bridge and the trail system on the east and west side of the river. And as a part of that letter, it said that, you know, we would also be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the trail system and the pedestrian bridge. And Tulsa's letter said the same thing, and the form letter that went to the Creek Nation said the same thing, but they took that out when they signed the letter and sent it back to INCOG to. So I mean, I think there's questions with what's happening with COVID, with the casino, with the hotel, their revenue streams, and I think it's kind of a bad time for them to be committing to any large amount of money, which I think we're talking about, you know, $20 million.
Right.
So yes, we've, you know, both Jenks and Tulsa have reached out to the Creek Nation over the last 5 years. We've even we've talked with members of the River District on and off. Some of them had potentially been willing to contribute, you know, or try to fundraise to get the money needed. But it's just such a large amount of money that it's pretty difficult to fundraise, you know, something like that.
And especially now, but it is a positive that they are postponing it, correct? Because they could have just let it die. Okay,
yes.
So that's good to know. So, all right, well, thank you for that update. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the extension's about the best news we could have on that at this point. All right, any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that the vision extension, you know, we anticipate that we'll collect about $22 million. That was the original estimate. And of that, 16.6 is to go to the low water dam and improvements along the river. But the amount for the actual dam construction from the city of Jenks is less than the 16. It's about 11 million. And so there's $5 million for bank improvements, stabilization, a seawall, and trails, extending the trails along the river. So there's things that we can even get started on regardless of whether or not a dam is funded or a dam will be built. I mean, these things will benefit Jenks. And so we've talked about including those in the capital projects list, and potentially getting started on those, even if we don't have an agreement in the next 2 years on the low water dam.
All right.
So the revenue from the bridge that we could build could supplement that 20% or could back that 20% if we could get Tulsa and Jenks on board with this whole thing. That could actually be the key, correct?
Yeah, and we've had discussions with Tulsa about that in the past, and you know, they're open to that idea. But yeah, with this extension, that really does bring the bridge into the discussion too, I would think.
Great.
Yeah, it gives more time for all those conversations. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Is this money accruing interest for the next 2 years? Well,
yes. The short answer is yes. The long answer is, you know, we're collecting about 1.3 to 1.5 million a year from the 0.55 vision extension. And so that's over a 15-year term. So we've collected, let's say, you know, I don't know if Robert Saucette is on the call, but $5 to $6 million, maybe $5 million, $5.5 million since the extension began. And yes. And so that 22 million, that number that I mentioned, is over a 15-year period. And so right now I think there's $4.5 million in the Vision Fund. And that is, I would assume some of that is in CDs collecting interest.
So we just need to make sure that we hold on to that until we know what's going to happen with the slow water dam. But even doing the embankment and developing that area could absolutely bring economic development to Jenks. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
All right, anything else for Mr. Strout? All right, we'll move on to our first order of business, consideration and appropriate action relating to requests for approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions or motions on the consent agenda?
There was an INCOG report on here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Gary, did you have one? Let me take over for you, Mr. Mayor Lee.
I missed that.
It's been a while.
I'm sorry. Let's back up. INCOG report. Councilor Isbell, sorry about that.
Okay.
Too excited.
I don't have my agenda in front of me, but I'll go from memory on this. They did a recap of the ozone alert, the air quality study for since last spring, and the city of Tulsa only had one exceedance in June, but they had 0 ozone alert days. You know, it snuck up on them at one of the testing sites, and we just had an exceedance at 1 meter out of all of them, and no perceived ozone alert days, which they haven't had for many, many years. I think it was like 12 years since we had a year that didn't have any ozone alerts in it. So the air quality was very good, and it helped our 4-year running average with the readings we had in this past season. So it will help buffer any issues we have for the next, say, 3 years. So it was a very good year for the ozone alert.
Hey, Gary, can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Did they address, I mean, and it kind of seems obvious, but did they address due to the shutdown and COVID and everything, assuming that was probably the rationale behind that?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, people aren't driving. I know for a fact from my company that people aren't driving like they used to because of the throughput of fuel through the Midwest. So yeah, a lot of people working remotely, and they did address that. They talked about COVID, people working remotely and Zoom meetings just like this one, reducing the need for the gasoline and burning gasoline and diesel. So it was that. Mr. Mayor, do you remember anything specific about the meeting? We did go over some invoices and some funding that needed to be taken care of, which is routine maintenance type things. And I'm drawing a blank on anything else that would impact us.
The cooperative fire dispatch, something that they went over. And so that's something that they've been studying, is how the regional municipalities can cooperate on our fire dispatch. And
yes,
Mr. Shroud, or I don't know if Chief Ostrom's on the line.
Chief Ostrom is on the line.
About that.
Yeah.
To talk about that.
Mayor, members of council, just kind of a reminder on that study we actually started way back in January of 2019. And the cities that participated in that were Jenks, Tulsa, Broken Arrow, Bixby, Glenpool, Owasso, Skiatook, Catoosa, and Berry Hill. So it was a very good representation of the whole metro area. The study came back and showed that having a dedicated fire dispatch was a possibility. The big challenge right now, of course, with COVID going on is going to be funding through the different cities and impacts with funding for that. So at the fire chief level, what we decided to do to keep this momentum going forward with this group is we actually divided into 3 different working groups. One is to work on automatic aid agreements. An automatic aid agreement is slightly different than a mutual aid agreement. Automatic aid is actually simultaneous dispatching. So if we had a structure fire in the northern part of town, we might be dispatched the exact same time that Tulsa is, whether that be on the Tulsa line or in the Jenks line, either direction. Jones.
Well, thank you.
Report, where we go as not late. Yeah, and then we also have that with the Kimberly-Clark facility as well. So the other 2 working groups were common radio terminology and unit designators. So just some different things that we can work on, that low hanging fruit for the area departments to increase that cooperation through them.
And there was a bit of discussion regarding the 911 usage, how to distribute that across the various systems, fire as well as police, IMSA.
So yeah, that pretty much covers it. I think the last INCOG meeting. But yeah, interesting to hear about that. And thank you, Chief, for shedding some light on that for us.
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Anything else, Counselor, or any questions about any of that?
I have
All right.
nothing
Thank
further
you,
on
Counsel.
INCOG.
Okay, well, thank you. And now we will really get down to our first order of business, consideration and appropriate action relating to request for approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions or motions on the consent agenda?
No, sir.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Let's vote.
Dyke,
Yes.
Ojev,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. We will pull item number 2 and move on to item 3, consideration of bids received for the purchase of the general obligation bonds of 2020 of the city of Jenks, Oklahoma, in the amount of $20.5 million, and an action to award the sale of said bonds to the lowest bidder complying with the notice of bond sale and instructions to bidders. Mr. Shroud or Mr. Sauceda, do you want to give us any further information on this?
Yes. So today was kind of the culmination of this GO bond process. We received 4 bids today by 11:30 a.m. And just to kind of rewind a little bit, 2 weeks ago, we did our meeting with the credit agency with Moody's to rate the bonds, and the city received a AA2, which is, if you compare that to S&P, that is about a AA, which is a really good credit rating, and it helps us earn a lower interest rate on our debt. So the bidders, again, we had 4 bids, and the lowest one, or the winning bid, was from Robert Baird and Company, where we're essentially borrowing $20 million for the next 20 years at a 1.89% interest rate. So below 2%. So it's really good. So item number 3 is to award that bid to Robert Baird and Company. Item number 4 is to actually issue the bonds. And item number 5 is the emergency clause for the ordinance. And item number 6 is a regulatory item that we have to comply with the IRS, essentially saying that the bonds are tax-free, and that we won't do anything to change that status, that we will comply with the IRS guidelines for municipal securities. We have our financial advisor, Greg Neto, on the line, as well as our bond counsel, Chris Byram, if you have any additional questions for us. I do have in the chat feature here, I will send suggested language to use in your motion. So if you could ask whoever's going to make the motion for number 3 and number 4, I am sending it in the chat feature so you can read as you make your motion to help you do this. So if you have any questions,
that is awesome, Robert. Thank you. You know, we need all the help we can get. Just, speaking for myself.
No problem. So if you have any questions, let me know.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sauceda. Any questions on any of that? All right. Are there any motions for item 3?
Sure, make the motion, Mayor. Okay.
I think we have to.
Motion to approve the agenda item number 3, awarding the bid to Robert W. Baird and Company at a true interest rate of 1.890815%. Move to
Second.
approve ordinance number 1537. issuing the 2020 general obligation bonds by the city of Jenks with the interest rates assigned to the respective maturities. Sorry.
So that's actually, so it's two motions. So one is
Two
motion number
motions?
3
Okay.
and the other one's motion number 4. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. My fault.
It's all
I'll
right.
do the first one.
Great.
I'll second the motion for item number 3 if one hasn't been made already.
Do we need to restate that motion?
I'll restate it.
Okay.
I'll restate it. Motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the agenda item number 3, awarding the bid to Robert W. Baird and Company at a true interest rate of 1.890815%.
Correct.
Thank you. Did I hear a second?
Yes, sir. Second.
Okay, thank you. Let's vote.
Dyke,
Yes.
Bojek,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. Item 4, consideration and action upon ordinance number 1537, providing for the issuance of $20.5 million general obligation bonds of 2020 by the city of Jenks, Oklahoma, authorized at an election duly called and held for such purpose, prescribing form of bonds, providing for registration thereof, providing for a system of registration for uncertificated registered public obligations, providing for a levy of an annual tax for payment of principal and interest on the same, and fixing other details. And
Move
Mr.
to
Sauceda, I think
approve.
you covered a lot of this. Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You want me
Vice
to read
Mayor.
the rest? Okay. Move to approve ordinance number 1537, issuing the 2020 general obligation bonds by the city of Jenks with the interest rates assigned to the respective maturities.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Let's vote.
Dyke,
Yes.
Bojek,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. Item 5, consideration and action upon emergency clause for ordinance number 1537, making it effective immediately upon passage.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Let's vote.
Dyke,
Yes.
Bojek,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. Item 6, consideration and adoption of a resolution 720, setting out the intent of the city to abide by the requirements of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, insofar as it pertains to the $20.5 million general obligation bonds of 2020 of the city dated November 1st, 2020, and authorizing the execution of certificates relating to arbitrage and all other final delivery documents pertaining to the above subject bonds.
Move to
So
approve.
moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, thank you. Let's vote.
Dyke,
Yes.
Bojek,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. All right, all that's official. Thanks to everyone for your work in making this bond a reality. This is really good news.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this is Greg Nito. May I make one quick comment?
Hey, Greg. Sure.
By the way, I just want to point out, and I know these guys won't talk about themselves, but Mr. Shrout and Mr. Sauceda did an amazing job on the credit committee calls, that they were responsive. They knew the stuff of Jenks, and that really does make a big difference. It can make a half a grade if the city officials know what they're talking about, and they were very prompt in the responses. The whole city staff has been, but I just want to make a comment, because that's not always the situation in Oklahoma. And so I just wanted to give them recognition as far as their knowledge and the responses to Moody's and the rating, and it does reflect in the low interest rate, which is phenomenal that we received on these bonds. So that's all I wanted to say.
Good. Great. Well, thank you for that feedback, and we love to hear that. We appreciate those guys, and we appreciate you, Greg and Chris, for everything you've done to help us with this process.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, City Council. Thank you all.
All right. Until next time.
See you soon.
Yeah,
right.
we should mention our citizens and thank them for voting for this. So this is going to make a big difference.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. The most important part. Okay, so we will move on to item 7, request to approve an advance clearance for change order number 2 provided by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation for the 111th Street Elwood to U-75 project, ODOT project number STP 172B276IG for costs resulting from relocation of the Creek County Rural Water District number 2 water line, 70 calendar days, additional construction time, and authorize the mayor to execute the same. See, Mr. Shroud, is this you or Mr. Carr?
No, it's me.
All right. Hi, Mr. Carr.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present an opportunity to spend some more money. We have before you a change order on the 111th Street project that is really a result of something that was an oversight of the design engineer and not including this in the original contract documents. The bottom line on this is, though, that even though if it was included in the contract documents, it would have been bid at that time, and we would have been paying for it through the contract, original contract. So one way or the other, it's a pay me now or pay me later type situation. What has happened on this project is that the water lines for the Creek County Rural Water District number 2 were in conflict and needed to be moved. The design drawings that have been prepared have been looked at by the contractor Sherwood Construction, and they have put together costs as a result of these changes that are being proposed. There's 3 of the pay items were already included in the original contract, and then there's 22 additional pay items that they are proposing in this change order that need to be done in order to move the water line and relocate that water line. So what you have in your packet is the change order that they have put together for each one of those items and the costs associated with those. What we do at this point in time is we are using this form that's called the advance clearance for a potential actionable item because we're not really paying for anything at this point in time. All of this will be rolled into a final accounting of the project by ODOT when the project is completed. So there's a change order number 1 that you already had approved a few weeks ago. Now this is change order number 2. And all of these get rolled together along with the original contract amount. But it's important to recognize that any change that's going on right now is on our dime because we have already reached the approved limit of funding that was approved through INCOG in our ranking process. And so all of this money really is going to be something that we're going to have to come up with when the accounting is done. Now, typically, the accounting on these projects aren't done probably for a good 3 to 5 years after the project's over with. So what we're trying to do here is just make sure everybody is aware of what these costs are and we have a record of it when it comes time to look at what ODOT ends up invoicing us. So what we're asking here is for an approval of the advance clearance. because part of the documentation that they have in this change order says that we acknowledge and we understand that that this is a cost associated with the project, and we understand the final cost will be reflected in the final cost apportionment, as they say in their document, which means after when the audit is done in the future. So we're asking for the approval of that. The amount of $610,980.02. 70 calendar days are being added to the construction time, and ask that the mayor be authorized to execute the document. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to go into more detail if you'd like more than what I've stated already.
Mr. Carr?
Go ahead.
Didn't want to talk over everybody. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. I wanted to thank you for bringing this up and making it the change order, and the description was really well written, so I could understand. And I like the fact that we're addressing it ahead of time, even though, you know, I don't want to spend another dollar, let 600,000. But the fact that we're looking at it now and we're not being shocked by it 4 years from now, I think we're really making progress with how we're going about looking at these funds and planning for them. So that's, thank you. So I appreciate that. That's a win, Mr. Shrout. So, yeah, Mr. Carr. My other question is, because I do live in the area and that's my ward, that 70 days, is that going to extend the opening of the intersection itself? Do they know?
We're expecting for them to give us an updated project schedule here probably within the next few weeks. And this would be reflected in that schedule. At this point in time, can't really tell you one way or the other what the time frame really means for the project. I'm not believing that this is going to really impact opening the intersection because it's not really part of the total intersection construction. It's more of the road work, but we'll just have to see.
Okay, that'd be great. Well, for elections that are in April, it'd be great if it was open before then. So thank you. Just something to plan ahead and to let them know.
Okay.
I think, Don, last week they were telling us, and I may be wrong, but I was thinking they were, before this came up, they were looking at March, possibly being kind of through a lot of it. I may be wrong on that.
Okay, that's a little later than originally. Originally it was February, so,
yeah.
Okay.
I think you're right, Councilor Murray, that they were talking somewhere in March, but it all is kind of weather dependent also. Yeah. Things could change between now and even the end of this year.
Well, Craig, the gentleman actually said they would have something all hands on deck in February to try to push for a March.
Yeah, right.
So in our world, you know, that means April.
A lot more employees out there doing stuff.
Sure,
so.
Sure. Hey, Mr. Carr, just curious, and I'm sorry if it's contained in the documents, but where is the water line at? Where does it run?
It runs along the north side of 111th, almost from almost the whole length of the project along the north side, and it even goes a little bit to the north and south on Elwood also.
So it runs parallel to 111th, or?
Yes.
So just in your opinion, I mean, were we not aware that this water line was there? Is this a GIS data error on our part or their part? Or,
well,
I mean, how do we miss the fact there's a giant water line that's going to cost us over $500,000 to move?
The design engineer missed it.
We knew.
Remember, we talked about those design engineers and how they can't see very much or at all.
We knew it was there. They knew it was there. They knew that there needed to be probably some relocation plans put in. The answer that the design engineer said when I wondered why it hadn't been included in the contract documents was that, well, this project's been going on so long, I just completely forgot about it. And I thought, well, that's not really a very good answer, but we got to deal with what we got to deal with.
All right, I was just curious. So it sounds like it's really just a clerical error, not an issue of the county or the city of Jenks not knowing where the water line was. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I still really think we need to figure out a way to hold these design engineers like, hey, if you miss this amount of funding, then you get to pay this portion of it. I know that's probably not feasible, but it just seems like, and we've talked about the lack of quality design engineers, but it's just very unfortunate that they can't seem to get that right, especially with large things like this.
I would agree with you, but I'll tell you, part of the situation that comes up is that if there was something that should have been in the plans that wasn't in the plans, then it would have been bid when the plans were put together in the first place, and we would have paid for it. And even now, we have to pay for it. So all during construction projects like this, if it's something that is a result of an oversight like that we would have had to pay for in any event, then it's just a matter of the way business is done for construction. I
understand that we've even had to pay for stuff extra after it was already done. We did that a couple weeks ago. So is this common in the industry? Do we ever have projects that come in on budget because there wasn't an oversight? I mean, this is all new to me. So I don't know, but it just seems like it just is all the time. And we're aware of it, and we're working on getting CAD drawings and things like that, like we talked about to help with that. It just seems like it's kind of excessive, but I don't know if this is just how it works.
I mean,
I would agree with you, because it just seems like every single time we have a project and it's been bid, and I understand we're going to pay for it. It's hard to understand when you're dealing with a design engineer how he misses this. So, I mean, we know we have to pay it. I get it. We're going to pay it front, back, whatever, but it's just a little frustrating. Yeah.
I totally agree with all of you. It's extremely frustrating to me and to other people in engineering. If he was sitting here right now in person, I would say this too. I will probably never recommend using this firm again. I think their responsiveness has been very poor. Their attention to detail on some things have been very poor. Unfortunately, we still have them under contract to do the Elwood project that we're working on now, but
we're stuck. Yeah.
And
we're not blaming you, Robert, at all. I think Don and I are just saying it's just amazing that, you pay these people this amount of money and they miss
that they can run a business. Like this, because in any other business that just isn't feasible. So,
and if this was a smaller town and you only had a certain amount of money, how would that come up with $600,000? So, it's a big bullet to bite, but we got to bite it. So
I totally agree with you all.
I got a question. With the contracting and we put things out to bid, if we put stuff out to bid, do we have to would it be feasible? Let me rephrase that. Would it be feasible to say, if you come in over contract by a certain amount of money, we will do a shared cost with you, but we won't pay full price for it? Something along those lines. I'm just throwing that out there for future reference, that we can put some kind of caveat in there where it becomes a shared cost instead of the city having to pick up all of it.
Well, I think it would be a little challenging to work out the details on that. I understand where you're coming from. But a lot of things, when you're working on projects like this, you don't know what you're really going to run into all the time, unless you have done a lot of potholing and found everything that's in the scope of the project limits. So I don't know that anybody would really want to do a contract under that provision, but I mean, there's times that you give them bonuses if they get done early. And you get.
You should give them a bonus if they come in under bid. Or like they catch everything. There's no mistakes. You get a bonus.
There you go.
I'm sorry. We know we can't decide these things, Robert. We're just trying to make light of it because we're stuck with it. I
understand what you're trying to do,
yeah. Coming in under bid and less time.
If we don't have to pay them extra, we'll pay them extra.
Yeah.
See, it's a win-win.
Sure.
Hey, 100,000 is better than 600,000.
That's a good point. That's a good point. All right. Well, any other questions on this particular item or anything adjacent to it?
I move to approve.
I'll make a motion to. Did you make a motion, Donna? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I will second Donna.
All right. Thank you. Let's vote.
Dyke,
Yes.
Oger,
I'm sorry. I thought I was farther down the line for some reason. Yes. Sorry.
Kalen,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. All right. That brings us to the end of our meeting. Are there any motions to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Let's vote.
Dyke,
Yes.
Oger,
Yes.
Kalen,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Mary Lee.
Yes. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Good
you,
to
guys.
see you. See you next week.